Admiral Issho finally displays his destructive power in my review of One Piece, episode 643. I don't know what it is about anime and manga right now, but apparently meteorites are in, because I'm seeing them everywhere in my series. If you remember just last year, Madara Uchiha was summoning massive meteorites and slamming them down on top of the characters. Most recently in Bleach, Kenpachi's fighting against this one Quincy soldier who was able to create a meteorite, which Kenpachi just destroys with one slash of his cool new Zanpakuto. You should check out the series, by the way, it's pretty kick-ass. But this week in One Piece, Admiral Fujitora just sort of upped the ante a little bit. With one slash of his sword, he summons this big, fiery, badass meteorite and leaves one of the coolest craters ever with all three of these badass guys standing together. This is just the beginning, the appetizer, if you will, to a truly epic and memorable battle in One Piece. And frankly, I cannot wait to see what's going to come of it. But that's the thing. This was basically a tease for that battle. That's really the highlight of this week's episode for me personally, is getting to see that one big attack at the beginning where Fujitora summons the meteorite. And I'm not sure how this ties into his abilities. I'm not sure if this had to do with hockey or if this was a devil fruit ability. What I can say is his powers almost certainly revolve around gravity and gravitational pulls, because he was able to pull down the meteorite, and even when a large chunk of it was about to destroy him, with one slash of his sword, he was able to deflect it and stop it with this move, which had this really satisfying and badass sound effect, and it was accompanied by these three purple rings, which stopped it right in its tracks, and it looked really cool. And like I said, it leaves a big crater, and this could have been like any scene in Dragon Ball. Everybody jumps away, big crater, oh yeah, whatever. But every single one of them are standing on these massive pillars made of stone and sand, and it looks really awesome. And that's because each of the characters were able to defend against the meteorite. Like I mentioned, Issho used his weird little gravitational thing, and then you had Law, who used his room ability to cut through the giant meteorite, and then of course you have Doflamingo, who looked pretty freaking scared. It looked like he was about to shit his really colorful britches when he saw that big meteorite coming at him, and he was able to cut right through it with his weird, who knows what the hell are his abilities. And that's, like I said, the highlight of the episode for me. Everything after that is kind of a downer, but it's not exactly bad. There are some cool scenes. I did like going back to the tournament where you got to see Luffy is actually fighting against that big bull known as Brutal Bull, and they sort of build up his story a little bit. He's basically just the big Colosseum beast, but Luffy is able to take him out with a combination of his gear second and just staring right at him and scaring him with his hockey abilities. But then he starts to ride him, and what's really funny about this scene is the bull has the goofiest look on his face when he starts to become friends with Luffy. It's definitely one of the funnier parts of the episode. But things start to pick up a little bit more towards the end when we get to see that this massive meteorite that just crashed into the Earth is actually going to be having an effect on someone else in the story, and that is the Tontada Kingdom. We go back to Usopp, and we go back to Robin, and I actually like how this all sort of ties into an arc that happened way back in the past, which is the Jaya arc, which is, there's this character by the name of Noland, and the Little Tontada people actually have like this little statue of him, and they met him a very long time ago, and this all makes sense why they sort of believe Usopp and all of his ridiculous lies. And this is where things sort of start to go bad for Usopp, because now they're all being dragged into this big war, and there's nothing they can do about it. So how was this week's episode of One Piece? Well, it was pretty good. I gotta say, the beginning part was definitely the most entertaining part of the episode. It had the highest production value by far. Everything else after that was sort of so-so, but just sort of still trying to build the story of what's going to be happening to some of the other characters. There was a small scene with Frankie and the toy soldier, and they're talking to Sanji, and even there's a scene where Violet actually decides to leave Sanji, but it's inevitable, they're going to meet up again, and even Kinemon comes back, and it looks like their story is starting to converge a little bit when they're going to this whole toy house thing, which is apparently where the factory is. And this is also where Kinemon's friend is going to be, so everything really is sort of converging with their part of the story. But I can't really imagine where it's going to go from here, because they seem to be jumping around at a lot of different places. Not to mention, we still haven't been back to the ship where everybody's on an acid trip, so who knows what's going to happen. But definitely, the highlight of this week's episode was getting to see Fujitora just go all out and kick some ass. It's great to finally see him doing something, and I really like the fact that since he's sort of new in the Navy, he's not really sitting well with the fact that Doflamingo's been sort of getting away with some of this stuff and being all fast and loose with his whole Joker alias and he's really not holding back against Law at all. He sort of renounced his whole being a warlord thing immediately when he summoned the meteorite down on top of him. So it was definitely the best part about this week's episode, and the thing I think that most of us are going to remember from this one. But otherwise, it was okay. That scene is definitely what sort of made this one, so I'm just going to give this week's episode a 7 out of 10. It was still a very solid watch. If you're following the series, definitely check out this week's episode. It was very entertaining, and it's going to get you real pumped up for what's going to be happening later in this very exciting Dressrosa arc. If you guys had a chance to check out this week's episode of One Piece, please tell me what you thought about it with your comments below. Did you like this episode? Did you hate this episode? What did you think of the scene with Admiral Issho? Remember guys, before you leave, make sure and hit that like button so you can give this video a thumbs up. I'm really not kidding. It's very easy to do. It only takes a second. Helps out these videos tremendously. And if you want to see all of our latest anime and manga reviews as they are released, please subscribe to the channel. It is really the true way to help out our channel. You can also check us out on Facebook and on Twitter. And if you'd like, you could donate directly to the channel. So, I'll see you next time, guys. Super Kami Guru 9000. Out.